recently signed a contract with the North Carolina Division of Services for the Blind to train individuals to become digital accessibility testers. I had these misconceptions of what blindness was because, I had never met another blind person. So as I was losing my sight, I had these misconceptions of like, what can blind people do? Who's going to want to love a blind person? Where can a blind person work? Where can a blind person live? Getting out of your comfort zone. It is easy to fall back into that, to feel safe. But sometimes we need to put ourselves out there. And when we do that, that's where sometimes true innovation and greatness come from.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson. Today in the studio, we have a successful CEO, a disability awareness speaker, and author, John Samuel. John, welcome to Blind Abilities.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm excited to be here.
John, it was exciting to receive an article from Carol Pankow about an initiative that is happening to help people who are blind and visually impaired become accessibility testers. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I know it's a program that we recently signed a contract with the North Carolina Division of Services for the Blind to train individuals to become digital accessibility testers. The reason we decided to go with digital accessibility testers is that we have seen that through our core business of digital accessibility services, that we were able to train individuals who are blind to become digital accessibility testers, and they became really hot commodities out in the workforce. And we realized that if we can help train other people, then we can help them get jobs. And there's such a high demand for accessibility right now that it's a growing field. And one of the best things that you can't train people to be is blind. And it's a value add. And we're really excited about giving an opportunity for people to get employed who were previously unemployed or underemployed.
Oh, that's important. ABLR. Now that's spelled ABLR. I like that. I like that twist there.
Yeah.
Tell us about that and more about the workforce program.
Yeah. So ABLR is the name of our business. We're actually a division of LCI, which is one of the largest employers of people who are blind in the country. It's a national industries for a blind agency. And so launched ABLR with the whole idea of creating upward mobility and creating job opportunities in the tech space. And so we have three core pillars in our business. First is eliminating the digital divide, which we do through our digital accessibility testing services. The second piece is changing the mindsets of people and organizations, which we do through our disability inclusion training and modules. And then finally, it's creating pathways for employment. And we're doing that through our workforce development program. And when you think about the first two pillars, when you think about eliminating the digital divide and changing the mindsets of people and organization, with those two lines of business, what we're really doing is building up demand for more accessible content and creating employment for people who are blind. And with that creating the employment, the workforce development program, we're creating that supply. So we're trying to meet the demand with the supply of talent.
How can people find out more and get involved with ABLR?
Yeah, so you can check out our website at www.ablr360.com. That's ablr360.com. And we have a lot of information on our website, and it's going through some updates, but it's always going through updates. Also on LinkedIn, and we're really active on LinkedIn and Instagram. And we'd love to connect with folks in the community to share more about our workforce development program, because right now it's only in North Carolina, but we're already in discussions with multiple other states to bring this over to other folks.
Oh, that's great, because there is a need for people to get educated or trained into specific jobs if they so wish to do so. And having this, which you're building a great model in North Carolina, I hope to see it get mapped across the whole entire United States.
Yeah. And the cool thing about the way we designed the workforce development program is that it was designed as a vehicle to be able to offer other trainings for other occupations, not just digital accessibility testers. So if somebody wants to go into recruitment or accounting, we can create a specialized training program for that. That's what we're super excited about it. And when we designed the program, we designed it in a way that we could provide it virtually. So we started training people across the country doing that as a proof of concept. And so now when we talk about providing this opportunity in North Carolina, we're able to tap into rural parts of North Carolina who previously were underserved. And if we can do it in rural parts of North Carolina, our hope is we can do it in any other corner of the country.
Working virtually. That's a great opportunity.
That's correct.
That's kind of a dream that the blind and visually impaired have always wanted.
Yeah, we've been waiting for that. I remember March 2020, I wrote a blog that said the silver lining of COVID. And the silver lining of COVID was that we were learning how to create job opportunities virtually and being done at home. And I remember LCI, the parent company of ABLR, I remember they said, oh, these jobs can't be done at home. But in 1 week, they figured out all those jobs can be done at home and they made it work. So that was the silver lining. And now we're seeing that there's a lot more collaborative tools. There's a lot more accessible tools out there, which are going to enable more and more work from home, which is just going to remove that transportation barrier that's limited a lot of people.
When I first received the article, I saw they were talking about this John Samuel. And I was curious, like, who is this John Samuel? Why haven't I ever heard of him? I mean, he talks about disability awareness to companies, and now you have a book out that just got released. So why don't you give our listeners a little bit on who is John Samuel?
Well, I'll try to make it short. I'm talking openly about my blindness now, but that wasn't always the case. I was originally born and raised in Cary, North Carolina. And when things started changing with my sight in high school, I didn't know what was going on. I just thought maybe I'm, partying too much or something's going on. I don't know what it is. And when I got to college, I was walking into so many things. And at that point, I realized something is seriously off in my eyes. It's not like my other friends. And that's when I got diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. But I was so ashamed and embarrassed, didn't want to tell anyone. And I kept it a secret. I ended up failing out of college because I wasn't disclosing it. And I kept, my actions led me failing out. And I ended up going back home to North Carolina and going to NC State University. I found a loophole in a continuing education program and took enough classes that they eventually let me into a full-time program, graduated. But I was still driving and I knew it just wasn't safe for me or others on the road. And I decided to go out to Bangalore, India, because in Bangalore, I could get a car and driver. It solved the transportation barrier. But I decided, coming back home to the US was really where I wanted to be. Came to New York. In New York, I was working paycheck to paycheck in the city, but it had great public transportation. But I didn't see the career trajectory like my non-blind friends. And that's when I moved out to Cameroon, started up a telecom infrastructure company, had immediate success. And again, throughout this time, I just wasn't talking about my vision loss. It was something that I kept a secret. But the reason I was moving around was that, I thought that's the only way I was going to be able to move up in my career. And moving to, different countries and major metropolitans took care of the transportation barrier. And so when I decided to go to grad school, I moved to DC and went to George Washington University. And it was during a orientation event where the associate dean of the business school, she found out that I couldn't see and she could empathize with what I was going through because she actually had a child with special needs. And she encouraged me to be open about my personal life and start talking about with my classmates. And I often say that was the first time I can open up my heart. I found love and I met my wife in the program. Yeah. And it was like the first time I could really talk about being blind. And that kind of led to a lot more things in my professional life.
Because you embraced your disability.
Well, it took me time to embrace it professionally because, like I said, I was open about it in my personal life. But on the professional side, I thought companies were going to see it as a liability. And I struggled to find a job after grad school. And after grad school, it was like every job I didn't know how to open, I didn't know how to disclose it. I didn't know how to advocate for myself. And so when I went to interviews, I struggled. Virtual interviews were awesome. Those in-person interviews, I really struggled. But I eventually landed on my feet with an investment firm that was focused on emerging markets. But that company folded after 3 years and I was out of a job again. And that's kind of when I heard about this software that was developed at a company called SAS, which is a data science company. And they had designed this software to help people who are blind and low vision visualize graphs and charts using sounds. And I thought it was so cool. But the coolest thing about it was designed by a guy named Ed Summers. And Ed had the same eye condition. He lived in my hometown of Cary, North Carolina, the same place I didn't think anyone blind could ever live. And so I tried for 2-3 months to get in touch with Ed with no luck. And finally, my wife said, if he can live in North Carolina, maybe we can too. We found a house online and told my folks. And they got so excited because they never thought I was coming home. My dad immediately jumped in the car to go look at this house. And as he's driving, he's talking to us on the phone and he started yelling at something. I was like, what are you doing, Dad? And he's like, oh, there's a blind guy on the road. Maybe it's the guy you're trying to get in touch with. Like, please, Dad, don't yell at blind people on the road. It's like, don't yell at anyone on the road. He's like, all right, gets out of the car, walks over for this poor guy and says, are you Ed Summers? And the guy said, yes, I am. My dad put the phone in his poor ear. And after apologizing to him profusely, he agreed to meet me. And I came down that next weekend and a 30-minute conversation turned to 3 hours. And Ed introduced me to the world of accessibility and he showed me that my career wasn't over. So yeah, he really encouraged me to be open about my vision loss. And, I learned a lot from Ed. And, I'm now open about it in my personal life and started opening up about my professional life. And I eventually joined an organization called LCI. As I mentioned, was one of the largest employers of people who are blind, and they wanted to create this new business, and that's what I did.
Right near your home that you left.
7 miles to be exact, and 7 miles to the dot from door to door. The funny thing is, just a few months ago, I bought my childhood home from my parents. And so I'm back home. I went all around the world to end up back in 10 feet from my childhood. Like now I'm in well, it used to be my parents' bedroom, and my son is now in my bedroom that I grew up in.
That's ironic because, you went to seek out a place where the blind would have a better opportunity, and here you're right back home. You didn't have the right understanding. That reminds me, in your TEDx Raleigh, you said proximity builds empathy. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so proximity builds empathy is something I talk a lot about because I didn't understand what it meant to be blind until I met Ed. Because I had these misconceptions of what blindness was because, I had never met another blind person. So as I was losing my sight, I had these misconceptions of like, oh, what can blind people do? Who's going to want to love a blind person? Where can a blind person work? Where can a blind person live? And so when I met Ed, he showed me how blind individuals live their life and live their fullest life. And I had this new level of understanding that I previously didn't have. And I saw that in my own life before meeting Ed, when I was climbing a mountain. And I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro when I was in Africa. And I remember I told the guides before we went, I said, I'm visually impaired and I have trouble seeing. And they looked at me and they said, oh, you're fine. You're fine. I didn't look what a blind person should look like to them. But after the first day, they realized the limitations of my eyesight. And, the more conversations we had, the more time we spent together, they gained a new level of understanding. And I was like, we're not going to be able to climb this mountain the way you typically take people up. But we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do it together. And once we had that kind of that time together and being able to share these experiences and understanding, they had a new level of empathy. I had a new level of empathy, and we were able to achieve our goal. And that's something now I try to do with organizations through my conversations, through this, like you and I talking, Jeff. The same thing I do with companies. It's like the more I can spend time and share my own life, and you get to spend time even going to lunch or going to do things, traveling with me. They get a new level of understanding and we humanize what it means to be blind.
Talk about disability equity and inclusion and the letter A.
Yeah. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge diversity, equity, and inclusion movement, right? And a lot of it, organizations say they were doing it beforehand, before 2020 and George Floyd. But, it really took a whole new shift in 2020. And as a result, I started noticing that organizations were really focusing on race, gender, and sexual orientation. And disability was just something that wasn't talked about. And so my TED Talk, I really go into that. It was like the idea, like I know organizations love a great acronym. So why don't we add in accessibility? Because for me, you really can't have inclusion without accessibility. You can't really have that equitable experience unless you have accessibility. And so, and if you don't have accessibility, you can't have diversity. So it's almost like this logical piece to me of including all four components to it if you truly want to build a sense of belonging. And again, and when you put it in the order of, switch it up from DEI to IDEA, you get a great acronym, which makes it easy for organizations to implement. I hope.
That's great. I'm glad you do all the disability awareness speaking. And when I first contacted you, I didn't know about it, but the second time we talked, your book was released. Talk about that one.
Yeah. So just like we're talking about proximity builds empathy, I can do it through speaking at events. I can do it by participating in podcasts. I can do it through LinkedIn live show I do. But, some folks, they learn better by reading. And so I wanted to be able to bring my story to life in a book, which others can read. And the title of it's called Don't Ask the Blind Guy for Directions, a 30,000-mile journey for love, confidence, and a sense of belonging. And as you kind of get an idea from my story, is like, don't ask the blind guy for directions, because I went all around the world, literally end up back right in front of right in front of me. But also, I think there's this misconception of a blind CEO. Can a CEO be blind? Here I am leading a team and providing direction for an organization, even though I can't see, right? But my vision is still there. And I think everybody can relate to, no matter if you have a disability or you don't. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants confidence, and everyone wants to feel like they belong. And I found all those things, but it took me a long time. And I want to share my experiences and provide any breadcrumbs for individuals and also corporations who want to implement an accessibility policy and procedures into their organization. I provide the why and how in the book.
Can you give the title of the book again and where people can find it?
Yeah. The book again is called Don't Ask the Blind Guy for Directions, a 30,000-mile journey for love, confidence, and a sense of belonging. And you can go to johngsamuel.com, and you can also go to Amazon, barnesandnobles.com, and you can order it online. And the audio version is in process and should be released within the next month. Not sure when this will be released, but it should be, I hope that it'll be by the end of 2022.
Did you ever believe, I don't think you did believe, I didn't think you believed that you could stay at home and now you're in your same home. I don't believe, you didn't think that you could be a CEO, a successful I can't even say it right, a successful CEO, and now you're an author. What advice do you have for someone who is, like a transition age student, 14 to 21, or in college, or someone who's, just looking out for their future? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. When I was in my lowest point, it was right after I had been let go of my company after grad school. My site was going really fast, and I was just feeling bad for myself. I was really just struggling. And, I felt like I had no control over anything, right? I couldn't control my vision at my site. I couldn't control, the fact that I lost my job, and I felt just powerless. And that's when I heard this podcast and called Guy Raz, How I Built This. And they had the chef Jose Andres on, and Chef Jose Andres mentioned on the podcast, he said, luck can't find you unless you keep moving. And so my mantra actually became keep moving. And so that's one piece I would encourage people is keep moving. Don't stand still. You're not going to find what you're looking for by just sitting at home. So get out there, meet new people, try new experiences, because that's how you're going to experience life and maybe find your next, what you're looking for. And the other piece I would say is that every day as my kids go to school, I give them, we have a little mantra to each other. And I say, what are you guys going to do today? And my two sons are 5 and 3, and they say, do our best and never give up. And I think those two pieces of advice, I think, are that everybody, blind or not blind, can really resonate is, do your best and never give up. And I'd say keep moving and try new experiences.
I hope people, when they listen to this, realize they don't have to travel 30,000 miles by keep moving.
That's exactly right. You don't have to go all around the world. And that's what I think. But, I think it is getting around in your community, getting out of your comfort zone, because it is easy to fall back into that, to feel safe. But sometimes we need to put ourselves out there. And when we do that, that's where sometimes true innovation and greatness comes from.
I like that. Someone once told me things happen for those who show up.
That's correct, right? Same concept.
Yeah. John Samuel, thank you so much. And thanks for all that you're doing for the blindness community and for bringing awareness to the sighted community out there, the industries, the businesses, and giving them the opportunity to see what they're missing by being more diversified, inclusive within their workplaces.
So thank you, Jeff. And thank you for bringing different stories and voices to our community, because I think it's critical. And I'm just honored to be here.
Thanks, John.
Be sure to contact your state services for the blind, your Voc Rehab, and find out what they can do for you. Live, work, read, succeed. For more podcasts with the blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities, and download the free Blind Abilities app from the App Store and Google Play Store. That's 2 words, Blind Abilities. And if you want to leave some feedback, give us some suggestions, give us a call at 612-367-6093. We'd love to hear from you. A big shout out to Chi-Chow for his beautiful music. You can follow Chi-Chow on Twitter at LChichow. I want to thank you for listening, and until next time, bye-bye.
When we share
what we see through
each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap
between the limited expectations and the reality
of blind abilities.
and the realities of blind abilities.